And Neama, thanks for being with us. These charges are rare. Why do you think that they were able to clear that high legal bar this time? And is it just a change of administrations?
No question it's a change of administration. Under the Trump administration, we saw very few civil rights prosecutions. In fact, the ones that we did see involved reverse racism, such as the litigation against Harvard for discriminating against Asian Americans. So we have a new administration, we have a new Attorney General Garland, and he is making these types of prosecutions a priority where they weren't before.
Neama, my wife always says if nothing changes, nothing changes. And we talk an awful lot about going after the cops. We talk about going after the police forces. We talk about civil rights violations. But should we be going after insurance companies? Because when you look at a city like Minneapolis that paid $27 million to settle the George Floyd case, $12 million for Tamir Rice, $12 million for Breonna Taylor, is it the insurers that should be talked to, not necessarily penalized, but talked to? Because if the cities actually had to pay these fines out of their own coffers, wouldn't we be looking at a better police force across America?
I think we would. You know, this type of settlement, these types of large civil settlements, I mean, people are put on notice. You know, lawmakers are put on notice. You know, elected officials, local law enforcement agencies, state agencies, because these can be very, very expensive. And now we have, 27 million reasons why the Minneapolis Police Department should change its conduct, not just necessarily the Justice Department investigation into their pattern and practice of discrimination and unlawful use of force. So no question that these civil settlements can be drivers for change.
Neama, Derek Chauvin says he wants a new trial. He says that there was alleged jury misconduct and pretrial publicity. Based on your knowledge of the criminal justice system, does he stand any chance of getting a new trial?
The pretrial publicity argument is a weak one. I represented Jeff Skilling. That was the last time this argument made its way up to the Supreme Court. And the argument there was so much publicity over Enron that he was unable to get a fair trial. And the Supreme Court said no. That's not generally a reason, absent actual prejudice or really the fact that it's impossible to seat a fair and impartial jury. So that's not going to stick. The issue with juror number 52 is a little bit more challenging. That's the juror that attended the Martin Luther King rally in Washington. And the question was, did he answer the juror questionnaire questions truthfully? There were two specific questions at issue, one of which was, did you attend any rallies in Minneapolis? And the answer to that was clearly no. Then there was a question that related to that first question and said, did you attend any protests relating to unlawful use of force or police misconduct? I think he could arguably answer that the Washington rally related to Dr. King didn't relate to unlawful use of force. Obviously, the Floyd family spoke there, and he wore a T-shirt that's the cause of really the appellate issue. But I expect the verdict to stay on appeal, but that's really the only basis that Derek Chauvin has for a new trial. The pretrial publicity isn't going to cut it.
Neama, I want to tackle this from the legal standpoint of you lawyers. And I use that politely. But when I have been in court, I have watched the public defender come in, and he or she has a stack of cases. And the judge runs through them, witness number 444, blah, 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 defendant, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty. I plead guilty. Off he goes to prison. And that goes on and on and on. The court system, unlike what we see on LA Law and all of the different legal programs that we find so attractive, isn't like that. It's a cottage industry where a lot of smaller lawyers, much smaller than you, make their living by a system that just keeps cranking out people to put into a system where they are incarcerated, and that system makes money. We blame the police. Should we be looking at the courts as well?
No question. Unfortunately, these are political decisions, and funding public defenders and criminal defense attorneys is just not a popular political decision. Some of the best attorneys I know are state and federal public defenders, but they can't devote the resources and the time to the individual cases like private defense attorneys. So you do have a system, unfortunately, where just from a time perspective, those who can afford private counsel get a better shot at criminal justice than public defenders, simply because of the sheer volume of cases that they have to handle and the lack of funding for their particular position.
I'm going to want you to work on that from the legal standpoint.
I'll try.
Neama Rahmani, thanks for being with us from LA, and we'll be right back. You're watching DC Today.
Thanks.
Closed captioning brought to you by Nutrisystem.